1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Lay It on the Table, the Southern Game. I'm going to blow it now because I couldn't read it fast enough. Dag nabbit. Welcome back to another edition of Lay It on the Table, the Southern Board Game Podcast with
Wide right again. Huh?
I know, it really was. I was staring at it right here. I thought, boy, if I put it in front of me, I'd hit it. But it is the Southern Board Game Podcast with the accent on Southern, even though I can't seem to nail that consistently. But we're going to work on that, and we're just going to leave all these glitches in here because, you know, humor.
Right.
And if we get enough listeners that it really becomes an issue, then I'll fix it in post. But anyway, I'm Joe Mahaffey, the stumbling reader of the tagline that he wrote, I don't know, a summer ago. And of course, with me, as always, my partner in crime.
I'm James Engelhardt, watching Joe stumble along. Yeah. It's still a good tagline.
I nailed it so perfectly last time. I don't know what happened.
You did.
I think it's my brain was like, oh, we got to get going. I got to push all these buttons and do all this stuff. Anyway, Welcome to 2023 and a new season of Lay It on the Table. It's interesting. I actually left something off our last conversation, and it was, but it's okay. We can pick it up here because I actually have a New Year's resolution as it relates to board games. And I thought, I have this BGG Board Game Geek app, and I have, as you know, I do not track the plays in the app. And so I've decided that in the year of 2023, I'm going to track every game that I play. Excellent. I may not always track who wins.
I don't.
But I will track who I played with.
Yeah, excellent.
We started a little bit before the year with a couple of games that we'll talk about in a little bit. But I thought, that would be just, something different to be a little bit more disciplined about, kind of have a journal of what I've played. And I'd like to try to play my whole collection at some point in time this year.
I was just looking back over my own stats from last year, played well over 200 games, played games over 200 times. So that's, 2/3 of the year. That's pretty good.
Just out of curiosity, how many of those games were quacks?
Probably 40 or 50 of them. Yeah. When that started off. And there's a whole bunch of Cascadiia in there as well.
Sure.
But, yeah.
Sure.
But it's also fun then to go back and see, because I had two groups of students who joined me and had a couple of friends over for different game nights. And so, it's been super fun to look back and see who all was involved with all of that.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. So, as always, we like to talk about what is on the table or what has been on the table. So why don't we start with you kind of walking through what you've been playing over the last couple of weeks that we have been off?
Yeah. So, of course, we went through the winter holiday season, as one does. And because board game, tabletop game dude, these come my way. People are like, how do you have so many games? I don't buy all of them. Frequently, they just show up. They have arrived as gifts. So one of the ones that we had a lot of fun with over the break was Catapult Feud, which is this gets remade every 10, 15 years or so, and sometimes goes by a lot of different names. But it's this fantastic basic game where you're sitting about 1.5 yards, 5 feet or so apart, and you have little plastic blocks with little plastic dudes, and you put them together however you wish, and then you've got these little catapults that are powered by rubber bands, and you take turns trying to knock over all the little dudes. And the first person to knock over all the other person's little dudes wins. That was awesome. That probably accounted for 12 plays of last year just by itself.
Isn't that the game we used to play in grade school with the paperclip and the rubber band?
Something like that. Yeah. I mean, there's a million, I wouldn't say there's a million versions of them, but there have been various formalized versions of this, and then lots of ad hoc versions, including, just build stuff out of Legos and knock it down, right, with your brother and whatever.
So help me understand. So you did not buy this. Somebody gifted this to you.
This is correct.
Okay.
My wife, as a matter of fact.
Okay. And she decided, boy, I'd really like to fight with James, but not but not over real stuff. So I'll take out my aggression here
Throw these little,
with the Catapult Feud. Okay, I'm tracking now.
Little fake rocks at each other. Yeah. It was super fun. Played a lot with Sky. Played a lot with Laura. And at one point, her dad was who was sitting on the couch watching us do this while there were football games or other stuff going on. I was like, well, I thought English professor would want to play more challenging kind of games. But we said, no, this is just fun. This is just fun.
See, that's what he gets for profiling you, judging you.
See, right?
See.
Well, and there's an option to play with cards where you can have a hand of like 2 or 3 cards and you can play them to move stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's just so much more fun to just watch these things at each other.
No, 100%. I mean, when you have a game that's sometimes having I don't want to call it a mindless game, but a game that you don't have to think a lot about strategy, or at least, what am I going to do on this turn?
I'm going to see if I can shift my trajectories a little bit. And knock that damn last dude over.
That's great. That's great.
No, and so if you wanted to play with the cards, you could do that. I don't know. We never touched them. We had them out to begin with, and they're like, you know what? It's just so much fun launching these things.
Why do I have this vision of you in March taking your class and doing like a bracket system till you get down to the end of March and everybody just
that could be fun.
So you could do something with that.
Yeah. No, I'd have a whole Catapult Feud. Final Four thing.
There you go. It's coming up faster than we think it is.
Oh, I know. I mean, there's a championship tomorrow. All of these very large physical games with lots of dexterity involved.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But sure.
I'm not the one playing, so
no, and
more dexterity.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
So
and then
good. No, you're good. You're going right where I was going to go. So keep going.
Yeah. So far more. I mean, I guess Feud came out very recently, just as it's published, but it goes back, again, as we were saying, just decades. And then Paint the Roses, which just came out. There was a Kickstarter about a year or so ago, which fulfilled. And then the the regular retail version is out, so that came my way as well. And that's a super fun cooperative deduction game.
Okay.
And so this would fit more in my father-in-law's eye. I would expect you to play more challenging games,
or at least a game based on a literary
and also literary.
Set. Yeah.
So, and it's a smart little game. It was super fun to play. Sky, who sometimes has trouble making decisions, slid right through it, had a great time. We lost because the queen is, she's relentless, but super fun and a lot. Like we played Cryptid and a couple of other deduction games that are a little like you really have to spend a lot of time keeping track of information. And this one felt like playing it 3-player, 4-player, you had enough information that was there in front of you that you didn't have to pay too much attention. We never did get to the advanced cards, so that might change your experience, but super fun. I really had a good time with that one.
Well, I may just have to put this on my wish list because this speaks on a couple of different levels. Number one is cooperative. And I think, as I've mentioned before, we're always looking for cooperative games. And it also is thematic in the sense that you have the whole Alice in Wonderland kind of thing. And I, my wife well enough to know she is a big Lewis Carroll fan.
Yes.
'Twas brillig in the slyly toves, as they say. And so this kind of also fits that sort of aesthetic as well. So I'm going to put it on my wish list.
Yeah. It's well worth it. It's
Board Game Geek. See if that works.
They've got a little hack to play at 2-player, and I think that should work. I played it as a 3-topper with Sky and Laura, and I would think that it went really quick. So I think it's an easy teach. You put a tile down, and then everybody decides, what sort of matches they've got, and there's little cubes that sort of let you signal that, and then everybody takes a guess.
Wow.
It's a pretty straightforward, particularly for a deduction game. Super straightforward.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then from my brother, this goes back a couple of years, also had a good time with this one, Karuba. which was, this goes back, I want to say 10, 15 years.
It says 2015. It says 2015.
Okay, so 8 years.
Math is hard.
I know. Rear Dorm. This was an early example of Haba trying to get into the more adult side of things. And this was one of their first moves into that. The fun thing about Karuba is it's a game that kind of uses a bingo mechanism.
Okay.
So everybody has exactly the same set of tiles. The person who's the active player, who's going to be sort of the caller for the whole game, shuffles theirs up randomly and calls out. Like, we have picked tile 17, and the next one is tile 5,
Okay.
and the next one is... And then everybody puts that tile, you have it lined up in front of you, and you put it wherever you want to on your board. And the trick then is that, and you're trying to move figures from the outer edges over to the other edge, so you're trying to connect routes across.
I see. So it's a little bit like Suro and Karuba, and okay, very cool.
Yep. So you're doing that sort of route building thing with the tile laying. The interesting trick here is that you can either place a tile where you can extend an existing trail, or you can trash the tile, and how many terminals are on that tile, either 2, 3, or 4, is how many you can move one of your figures.
Okay.
So you're either building the path or you're moving along the path, and it's the same tile. So you have to make these decisions about
choice, right?
Whether this is one that I need, or this has the movement that I need to
Get
to
to where I
go.
want to go. Yeah.
Yep.
So just out of curiosity, was this new to you, or did you pull this out of your collection and play it?
This was new to me.
Okay.
This is one of those games that I would go into a game store and think, ooh, that's so interesting, but I never pulled the trigger. So it's great. Once again, holidays, gifting occasions are nice for people to show up and say, you know what, you should have that game. So, and that was another fun. I think you could play this 2-player very easily. And it's also just fun to watch how, confronted with exactly the same choices, people come up with very different responses to those choices.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense. So, and, that's the thing. There are so many games, and when I get into mine, I'll talk about some that are, have a mechanic for 2-player to make it interesting, and that sometimes works and sometimes it doesn't work, and I can, give you a couple of examples where we've had to, kind of make our own house rules around a 2-player game that is missing something just to kind of make it worthwhile, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
Yep. We had to do that with Wingspan early on with the base game, because the food tray and the birds tray can become pretty static if there's just 2 of you.
Right.
And so somebody had to come up with a hack to play the automa card and just sort of either take the food or the birds, whatever it said to do. And that moved things along. And then the European expansion came out and everything moved along much more quickly. But speaking of Elizabeth Hargrave,
yes,
Mariposas was one that I did pick up. It was on a clearance rack at the back of the local game shop, and I was like, well, damn, I guess I have to take this home now. And that's been a lot of fun. Laura and I have been playing it a lot just the last couple of days, and it's interesting. It's a game that can be pretty relaxing because you don't really interfere with each other at all as you're moving your butterflies north, reproducing, gathering supplies and extras, and doing some set collection, and heading back down if you can to Michoacan. And it's a nice one end of the night for us, because it's, Emerson's just gone to bed and we're going to do something a little, watch something a little bit later, but it's a nice right in the middle there. And the more that we've played it, the faster it goes. So
yeah, we like this game a lot. We've had it since it first came out. And it's interesting. What I love about it is, Elizabeth Hargraves has really, in my mind, established herself as a designer that when she does something different, it's different. It's not just her original concept, reskinned, if you will.
Right.
I was expecting, to be a bunch of cards in there with different butterflies on it, and it was going to be like the birds, Yep.
When you
first hear that this is where this is going, yeah. And so I liked this game, and it's interesting because I generally win at this game.
Oh, okay.
And it's because this game has an element to it that reminds me of chess. And what I mean by that is because there's 3 different life cycles that you're working through, I'm always thinking, where do I need to be at the end of this one to be where I want to be at the end of the next one, and then get back to Misc going. I said that wrong, I'm sure.
It's okay.
You know, and get as many butterflies back as possible. And how do you stage that waypoint, if you will? And and then using the cards that you have to benefit from, are you East, are you West, are you North, or South kind of thing. Yes. And so it's always frustrating for Dale because I'm able to think, okay, where do I want to be? And she'll get stuck further away and have to make her way back. And so I may get 2 or 3 butterflies in at the end of the day where she gets in 1 or 2, and that makes a difference.
It does. We've been less focused on getting lots of butterflies back to Michoacan, but also figuring out some of the other bonuses that can help you in a couple of different ways. And it has been fun to start to figure out, okay, so and the movement cards do add a bit of, we were talking about this a little bit in terms of Sanssouci, where if you don't get the card, you just don't get the card. You've got to figure out some other movement, some secondary action, some other plan, because, you know, you can plan to do whatever you'd like, but if the movement doesn't show up, then you are stuck figuring out something else, which I think is an interesting way to keep it from becoming exactly chess-like, because it isn't perfect information either for the other player or for
100%. It's just me, you know, when I say it's like chess, it's like you're thinking
I see
moves ahead.
Yep.
And it's Michoacan. Did I say it right now?
Yes.
Okay, Michoacan. I'm just, you know, I want to be right about these things. You know, geez.
Mariposas. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there was a moment when we were playing the other day where I was like, okay, so I've got 2 movement cards that are going to let me do this, which will let me do 2/3 of this final plan.
Yep.
And luckily the other card that I needed dropped into my hand, and huzzah, I won.
Yeah,
but
it's crazy.
It's always been close.
Yeah, it's crazy the way it can operate. But it's a really cool, because there's a friend of mine that I play music with, and his wife is big on the butterfly release every year, and she does the chrysalis, and she's got butterfly bushes and all this stuff. And we turned her onto this game. Because we just thought, you know, hey, if this is something you're passionate about, this is a game that you can kind of use to explain to other people why you do what you do.
And the game is super accessible. I think it's not, I mean, the way AEG writes rules is not nearly as strong as Stonemaier writes rules. As I was going through the rule book.
Don't read the Santa Monica rule book ever. Don't. But
still, as you're, you know, once you've got the flow of it, it's a super straightforward. Yeah.
No, we love it. We haven't played it in a while. Probably should get it back out. It's one of those. It's easy to get on the table. It's easy to play, and we like it with our board game table because I've got these little stations that you can set up your own dice rollers. Oh, and there's a tray there, so we kind of stack our seasonal butterflies up there on the tray, and then we have the dice to work with. So it also made the Game Topper game table get used early when we was like, we just got the table and the game just came out, and it was like, oh, this is perfect.
Awesome.
So anyway, well, that's cool. Yeah, I'm glad that you finally got an opportunity to play that game. It's one I see in the game store, and it goes in and out and in and out. And I recommend it a lot to a lot of people. Just because it's a fun game. Well, obviously with the holidays and stuff, we had a lot of different things going on, but we were able to get some gaming in. Our kids were home, and we had given our daughter Cascadiia when it came out, but she really, you know, she's living in another city. She's got work to do, and she's like, she needs to learn the game. So she's like, I want to learn Cascadiia. We said, okay. So we sat down and played it. We played it a few times with her, and she really enjoyed it. And, you know, I think it's really, you know, we talk about the AEG games, and it's when you get into those, hexagon type tile games, which they're famous for, you know, Calico, Cascadiia, and I'm going to talk about Verdant in a minute. You know, that there's just that sense of, you know, laying tiles out and getting that feel for it. So she enjoyed it. She enjoyed the symmetry of building out her tableau and keeping all the environments together and getting the right kind of wildlife in the right spot. I'm the king of salmon. I always can get this really long salmon line going, and it just really irritates them. So, you know, but so Cascadiia was fun to kind of get that out on the table. But the next two were more new to me. And so we're going to start with Dog Park. You know, we talked a little bit about it a few episodes ago, but I hadn't played it yet. And it's interesting. So this is a game, you know, we've seen the bird game and we've seen the cat game, and now we have the dog game.
Many cat games.
Many cat games, that's right. But Dog Park was very satisfying on a lot of different levels. I got to tell you, and I was turned on to it by our mutual friend, Chris Keener, who had backed the Kickstarter. And I didn't back the Kickstarter, but he was telling me about it and he was excited about it. And I, you know, obviously how social media works, it showed up in my Facebook feed that I could order it direct from Birdwood and still get the Kickstarter perks. And so I did.
Nice.
Got here in time for Christmas, not knowing that when we pulled it out on Christmas morning, my wife was like, "Oh, I've been wanting to play that." I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, I didn't
That's
know."
awesome.
So, but what's really cool about it is, you know, there's this element of you are attracting dogs to your kennel, and then once you have to bid for them with your reputation. So you have these little bidding devices that look a lot like a leash holder, you know, and you're bidding for the dog. And so, and when you have a 4-player game, there's 4 spots. And you may bid 5. So everybody starts out with 5 reputation, and that's your currency. And so you may bid 1 or 2 or 3 for that dog, but you put your dog walkers down one at a time. So you don't know, you put your dog walker down, you make your bid. You don't know with the next person if they're going to try to go for the same dog or if they're going to go for a different dog.
Oh, okay.
And so there's a bit when you're player 1, it's actually a little bit more stressful than when you're the last player, because you can kind of know, okay, well, if I go there, I can bid 1 and I know I'm going to get the dog.
So is it just a once around bid then?
So you do the first, you attract 2 dogs to your kennel per round. There are 4 rounds. So you attract the dog to your kennel. That's your bidding with your reputation. And then you put the dog on the lead to go for a walk. And to do that, you have to use the resources that you've been given. You start off with a couple of
roadkill?
No. No, but there's like different treats. You know, there's toys, there's chew toys, there's bones, there's, you know, different things like that. And so you're using, and different things are going to be a currency. So sticks and balls, you get 2 of those, and then you get 1 treat and you get 1 chew toy. So, because those are a little bit more expensive to get. So so when you're looking at the dog, just like in Wingspan, there's a cost to pay for the bird. Well, there's a cost to attract the dog to get on the leash. You're like, come here, get on the leash, come here. You know?
Yeah.
So, you know, you do that. And so the idea is you can probably get 1 to 2 dogs out for a walk on your first couple of rounds. So then you go for this walk, and the walk is determined. Things that you can pick up along the way. It's kind of like parks. You know, if you land if you go here, you get the resource that's there. Right. Mm-hmm. And then there's a card that comes out every round that changes what resources you can find. And one of the actions you can take is you can look at the deck and look at 2 dogs on the deck and decide to replace one of the dogs in the opportunity to attract next go round, because you're always refilling the field of dogs that you can attract. And then there's another move that says you can swap a dog in your kennel with one of the dogs that's showing. So you can begin, because there's randomly you put out the dogs and their value, And certain like I'll just put it down this way: if you have the most hounds, there's 8 points at the end of the game. And the next layer might be
thing going on.
Right, and the next thing might randomly have been terriers, since we went to Wofford. Terriers would be 7 points, and so on and so on and so on. And so there's all of these different things that can really drive the outcome of the score, which I like because it's very balanced. I like it because it's very balanced. So you do the walking thing, and the first one in gets some reputation point. The second person in gets some reputation. The third person in gets a little bit less reputation, and then or a swap a dog. And then the last person is just, you got to come in automatically and you lose a point. So it's kind of like Parks. Once you get all your players off, everybody's off the board. So there's all those kinds of different things to it, and you do that 4 times, and it's just really satisfying because your reputation goes up, but then you have to attract more dogs, so your reputation goes down, and so there's this fluidity to your reputation, and the dog walking kind of makes it fluid, and then at the end of game goals can really drive it. So I've played this thing 4 times. I've won it 3 times out of 4.
Okay.
But it's not been like I ran away with it. It's been like by a point or 2, you know.
And have you been playing this 2-player or with
we played
kids when they were over the...
We played it both ways. So we were down in my in-laws' house, and my wife's cousin's kids came in, and we taught it to them. And so that was a true 4-player game.
And those are adult children, or
they were 12 and 9.
Okay, 12 and 9. Nice.
But it was really interesting. I really thought one of them was going to win because, you know, I was kind of holding back a little bit. Shh, don't tell them I said that. Well, because it's you know, you're teaching them, and you want them to like the game, and
you don't want to be an asshole.
Yeah, I know it's playing against type for me, but you know, so. But yeah, but then the thing is, I kept getting these. I had the most hounds, or I had the most. You know, I had the and all of a sudden I had like 15 points out of nowhere just by accident. And anyway, it was just that kind of thing. So, but it was very close. It was like we were all within like 1 or 2 of each other. It was not a big. Nice. It was not a big. And that's what I like about it. It's a balanced game. You don't feel like, and there's no point in the game where you kind of feel like, well, that's it. I should just give up. Because there's certain things that are going to work your way. Now, I will tell you, in the 2-player version, you add the third person as sort of an AI figure. As an AI figure, they have their own kennel. They don't do certain things, but they always. So the way it works is, you bid your order. So let's say there's a hound on the board you want, and the hound is the most valuable dog.
Okay.
The automa will always place themselves on the most valuable dog. And then you have a dice that you roll that tells you what their bid is.
Okay.
So if you're like player 1 and you know you see that this is the most valuable dog, you're probably going to bid like a 3 or 4 and hope that the dice roll doesn't exceed you. Yeah. So that's been actually pretty interesting. And then also, as you go through the dog selection, she gets a dog too, or they get a dog. And so their kennel is filling up, and it could be at the end of the game, who's got the most hounds, and you look over there and the automa's got the most hounds. And so you don't get that 8 points.
Jerk.
Yeah. So I thought, you know, it's really interesting the way that they've done this is that they've made it easy to manage.
That's good.
You know, and you're not having to act like you're playing that third person. There's just certain things that happen that keep them in your way, if that makes sense.
That does.
So
it sounds like there's a bit of a point salad. There's a lot of different ways to get points throughout the game, and then you've got some big bonuses at the end. Yeah,
that would be fair.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like games like that. That's
So, but what was interesting is, if you know, on my Facebook, I always post pictures with the hashtag not board, but board gaming, not board gaming. There we go.
Yes.
And somebody asked me about it, a friend of mine, and he's like, you know, I was kind of on the fence on this game. What do you think? And we'd only played it one time, and the first time we played it, it was kind of like, okay, that was cute.
Okay.
And then we commented on it like that. And then we played it again, and we played it again. And all of a sudden we realized there's some complexity to this game. It's the fact that it's still balanced, the fact that there's strategy. The no game is played out the same way yet.
Cool.
And I think, wow, this is really neat because you can play it with kids, like I said, 12 to 9, you know, but at the same time you can play it with adults, and it's never like, there's just the way that the dogs fall, the way that the cards fall, the way that all the things fall. It's amazingly satisfying.
Nice.
Anyway,
that sounds awesome.
So that's Dog Park.
Now I'm very interested in this game. Yeah.
And then I think I told you that, you know, we had bagged Verdant and it came in, and I just had sort of saved it for Under the Tree. We really like this game, and it's right up there with, you know, your normal flat out games kind of publishing. You know, the whole, we talked a little bit about they did Cascadiia, they did Calico, yep. And obviously this game. And so it's one of those things I kind of feel like these guys for me this design team for me is the REM of board gaming, where I would just, they've got something new coming out, I'll just buy it. I don't need to just grab that. You know? Yeah. So, and of course, you know, anytime you've got Beth Sobel doing the art, you know, it's going to be good.
Yeah.
So, and it was, you know, it's a very nice card laying tableau, very much, you know, you're building out, it kind of reminded us a little bit of, because you're building out this of like 5 wide and 3 tall of your cards. So you're building that out. And they have to be, orthogonal, to each one. So that's always kind of orthogonal. Is that the right way to say it?
Orthogonal. Yeah.
Orthogonal. Yeah. Anyway, so we really enjoyed that because you're picking a room, you're picking a plant that's going in that room, and depending upon the light that room is letting in will drive the verdancy of that plant, and you're getting resources from that verdancy. And as you collect the right kind of verdancy, there'll be a number on the card. So if you get, like, let's say the number's 5. So if I get 5 verdancies over a period of time, and there's different ways that you do that, then you get to take the verdancies off and you get to claim a pot that has a value that you put over that. So it could be 3, 2, or 1. And the number of pots that you have in the game are dependent upon the number of players. And so, you know, we find that to be it's just a nice, relaxing kind of game. There's strategy to it. You're building out that tableau, you're collecting the resources. And also it's kind of like, it's a little bit like, Cascadiia, in the sense that you put a card, you're taking a card and you're taking a
tile at the same
tile
time,
of sort. Yeah. And then you can either put the tile on the card, or you can put it in like a bank where you've got like a 1 holding position, because there's certain tiles that you can get that are like fertilizer or a watering can or something like that, that give you an ability to enhance the verdancy. Or you are putting these tiles in the room, like it might be you might have a pink room and you get a pink tile that's got a goldfish on it. And at the end of the game, the number of unique tiles that you have help you with the score, and having a tile on the card will make certain things more valuable. And just, you know, from a point salad standpoint, there's different ways that you can enhance the game and still come out ahead. And, you know, and it's one of those, it's very similar to Dog Park in the sense that, you know, we come out of it with, you know, 2 to 3 points apart. There's never really a runaway of the game. And we've played it, mostly 2-player. I don't think we've had an opportunity, to play it with more than that. So, and
it looks like there's a bit of a puzzle, which would again be sort of a flat out games thing of how you're putting these things out, the adjacency stuff that you were talking about, and finding ways to combo that stuff up for your best version of things.
Yeah. I mean, it's very much the layout that you want to do, is that you're trying to surround a room with the plants that would want to be in that room, and they're color driven. And at the end of the game, there's 5 different room colors and there's 5 different plant types. If you get 3 points if you have at least all 5 plants. and you get 3 points if you have at least all 5 rooms. So there's certain ways that you can kind of, update your score. The resources that are left on your cards unused, you get to count them at the end. But so if you have 2, you get a point. If you have 3, you get a point. If you have 4, you get 2 points. You always divide it in half and then round down.
Gotcha.
And so, so there's lots of, it's well thought out mechanic, real easy to learn, real easy to play. And then there's some goals and some other things that they do that we haven't quite moved on to. So you can even enhance the game.
Okay.
But last week it was on our table all week. Well, the week before had been Dog Park. Did Dog Park all the way through. Then we switched to Verdant and did Verdant all the way through. And now we're on our way to picking out something tonight. We think we're going to pull out Asia. But, we got a lot of games for Christmas. We got a lot of work.
Asia is good. Yeah.
So that was sort of what's been on our table for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. I like it.
So I was excited to see. So I was looking at Dicebreaker, a magazine or online magazine, I guess I should say, and they did their tabletop awards for 2022, and I was very happy to see that they had awarded the game of the year to Flamecraft.
Yes.
Now I don't know if their approach to tabletop awards is how. I don't know if that's just like, hey, James, let's you and I pick our favorite game of the year and call it that, or if it's.
Well, they say they have industry people who are doing as well as this listener's choice or People's Choice Award. So it's got to be. Yeah. I don't know how they define that first term, but that's what they say on the website.
Well, I'm gonna include the article in our show notes, and there was a nice article about them talking to the designer of the game, and he said that the idea was to kill players with cuteness.
That's
so. and I was looking
at that list too, and the breakout or up and coming designers of the year were the Dog Park people. So I thought that was
that's
matchup as well.
Yeah, that was. It's just kind of nice to see that this is such a fluid hobby. In that sense, that there's always something new coming along. It's not always, what did we talk about last time? I don't know how the heck that happened.
Wow. All of a sudden.
That's what happens.
Musical interlude.
That's what happens when you open a browser that's got music playing that you don't know about. I was trying to pull up the list to see if there was anything else on there. Oh, well. Not a problem. That was a nice little musical interlude. Thank you for that. Oh boy.
Whoever that was.
I tell you.
No, but it is nice to see that there are, that you always have new people coming in, and this seems like a young couple from their photos, and it's just fun to see that we've got, millennials and late stage millennials, and getting into Gen Z people who are still interested in tabletop games as a way to connect without the screen, even though you and I here we are connecting over screen. But it's great to see that others really value the same kind of tabletop space that we do.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I ran into the same guy that had asked me about Dog Park. I ran into he and his daughter last night at the grocery store, and they had gotten Flamecraft for Christmas.
Nice.
And they got it at our friendly local game store that we talk about, Carolina Tabletop Games. And, and so it was just kind of fun to see how it's getting out there. It's got that, there's that, it's nice to see a game that's got buzz again. It seemed like there was buzz with Wingspan, there was buzz with Parks, there was buzz with, Isle of Cats, and that happens, but it just seems like in the last 18 months, there hasn't been that buzz.
Frosthaven.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
if you've gotten yours yet.
Yeah. Well, there's that.
Yeah. But I mean, it's stuff like that. I mean, that it's one of those, it kind of comes along, and there's the there's the marketing push buzz, and then there's the word of mouth buzz. And I think that that's really the difference of what I'm talking about here is that, they've all kind of got it down to a science in terms of, well, we're going to use Kickstarter to build momentum for it and to make sure we have our, costs covered, and we're going to do this.
Yep.
And so it's, anyway, so I just thought that was interesting to see what had come out there.
Well, and speaking of that kind of thing, I saw that Obsession has broken into the top 100 once again. Just a one-off, one game company.
Yep.
Getting on the boards, as it were, and so that was kind of fun. I was thinking of you when I saw that.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because Shipshaper Games, which is they do inserts, they developed a custom insert for Obsession.
Oh, wow.
And the upstairs, downstairs. And I actually bought it and built it over the holiday.
Okay.
And I can now get all into one box, and it actually closes tightly, which I'm very excited about. But it's also organized the game in such a way that you can very quickly get it out on the table, which is what I'm very excited about, because it's one of those games that there is a lot of setup to it. But which is why once we get it out, we tend to leave it out for a few days. But we love that game, and I love it too that Dan Halligan, who's the designer of the game, is so responsive. It's kind of like the interaction we talked about having with Jamie. Mm-hmm. When I got the game, well, first of all, when I was a late backer to the game, and it was during the pandemic, it was Dale's birthday was coming up, and I said, hey, I don't know if you're going to be able to ship this before this time, but if you can, it's for my wife's birthday, et cetera, yada, yada, yada. And he took the order, and he's like, I'm working on it. We'll do what we can. They missed that mark, which was okay. But the thing is, once he realized he was going to miss the mark, I got an email from him saying,
"Oh, nice,
Joe, just want you to know this is the situation." And it was just very customer focused. And then when we got the game, one of the meeples was cut in half. It did, like, the bottom half was missing. It was like and I was like, that's a bummer.
I didn't think they were still doing executions like that at that.
I didn't either.
Okay. Yeah.
So, British royalty. Anyway, so I sent Dan a note saying, hey, do you have an extra meeple that you could throw me? And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And he sent me like a bag of meeples, like one of each character. So I have so I have more than I need
in case there's a royal purge. Yeah.
So that was kind of cool. And so he's just always been responsive. And then you said Obsession, and I went down something that wasn't even on the list to talk about.
Obsession. Yeah. But since we're talking about Kickstarter.
Yep.
Yeah. So Artisans of Splendid Vale arrived, and probably about, 4 or 5 months late, but these things happen. Shipping was all kind of weird and so on. And I was expecting, maybe a Wingspan sized box, or maybe Isle of Cats, right? Slightly outsized box. Mm-hmm. This is more like
Is that the retail version?
No, I don't know. I don't know what the retail version is going to look like, but this thing is a monster.
Wow.
It's the size, a little bit smaller than the Wingspan nesting box.
Yeah.
But Splendid Vale is a sort of book with, you have your little encounters on a book like this, or sort of a spiral bound thing. It's, if anybody's played Stuffed Fables or some sort, it's kind of a choose your own adventure sort of thing.
Yeah, that's what it looked like to me, was the Stuffed Fables approach.
It very much is. What's also interesting that I found about this is that each of your characters has their own sort of separate book too. So when you go to those pages, they'll send you to other pages here, so that there are things that your character can see in a space that other characters can't, right? So if you're playing the artisan, you'll see more in the tools section than the character that's the warrior, who would find more stuff in the weapon section. So they have their own books. And when I say books,
jeez.
Yeah, it's their own.
That's crazy.
So it was astonishing, and there's all this stuff in there. It's just like, wow. So, yeah, I was expecting, again, maybe Isle of Cat size. No. This is probably 10 or 15 pounds of game.
Will it fit in a Kallax?
Oh man, it should.
should.
It might be a little.
You need six.
Yeah, I think it would fit in a
inches.
Kallax.
16 inches, I think, is the clearance in a Kallax.
Yeah, no, I think it would do that. It's a nice cube. And then the rule book, fascinatingly, is laid out like a war game, in that each paragraph has its own number. So, like, I'm picking at random here on page 9, we have 302 dice pool, 302.1, 302.1A, 302.1B. So that's, different paragraphs. So it's easy enough to, like, here's the sentence you need.
This is what happens when a lawyer writes a rule book?
No. But it was fascinating. I looked at that and I was like, oh, wow. That's an approach to a Euro game sort of storytelling game that I hadn't seen. It's more of that old school war game look.
It's interesting to me that I'm looking at the complexity rating and it says 3.5 out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
But what you just described seemed like 5.5 out of 5.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it's, once you've got like your character sheet and stuff in front of you, it's going to, it feels like it's going to be fairly streamlined. But so it's not like you're playing, something that's deeply complicated, like Eclipse or something, right? But it's there's still a lot of stuff going on.
I'm looking at it on their website right now, and it looks as big as what you just showed me.
Oh yeah, it's a big.
It's available.
It's a big boy.
It's available for purchase at Renegade Games. RenegadeGamestudios.com.
There you go.
So there you go. Huh. Interesting.
Oh yeah, and so I'm looking forward. Sky coming down and see if we can get this on the table and play a couple of. And it really feels like Stuffed Fables, the board game for adults.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also nice to have something sort of campaign related that is not caught up in other tropes.
And that is interesting, and it does also have a legacy aspect to it.
Mm-hmm.
So you are writing things down, but you could also buy the reset pack, which I did because it was another
Kickstarter, sure.
Yeah, another $15 or $20 for the add-on. And I was like, well, at this point, what's another $15 or $20? So
nice,
yeah. So looking forward to seeing it. It's a very different sort of approach to characters, and we'll see how the adventure goes.
Yeah, I'd keep us posted on that. I think that would be fun to get how that goes. Well, for me, it's been kind of quiet on the Kickstarter front. I think December is a time when they don't do launches, which is probably good because people
makes sense.
Yeah. But I did get some alerts that things that I have backed a while back have finally shipped. First and foremost, Harry Potter Catch the Snitch. By Night,
which again sounds like a mafia thing, but all right.
Yeah. So it is officially shipped. I think I actually have a tracking number on it. But Night Models this is the organization. They're out of Spain, and they have a lot of licensing with Warner Brothers. They've got the Harry Potter series, and they've got a lot of the DC comics. They've got a whole Batman miniatures game that they do a lot more by putting their value into the quality of the miniatures. Those think like, is it Steamforged that does that?
Yes.
Yeah.
The 3D color printing, that kind of stuff. And highly detailed.
So they've done that. And so I have the Harry Potter miniatures game and with all the minis, which is mainly why I got it, because I wanted the minis. But Catch the Snitch is kind of like a Blood Bowl kind of game without the blood of the bowl. It's
well, there's still a pitch.
Yeah, there's a pitch, and you've got your players, and there's dice, and it's a 2-player game. Obviously, that. So it's a neat thing. And I had backed it. How long ago was it that I backed this darn thing? Because it's been a while. It's been a hot minute. It's one of the few that are on my list that are probably at the lower part of the list in terms of when I backed it.
Sure. It looks super interesting. Yeah, particularly if you're a fan. It looks like it's trying to do that aerial movement, combat, all kinds of good fun stuff.
Yeah, it was originally due to be delivered November of 2021. So that tells you how long ago I backed it and how long I've been waiting for it. So,
Wow.
Yeah, it was funded on December 12th, 2020. So it's already been 2 years. But Night Models, they've been, they say it's shipped. So, yeah, and they do other stuff. So I'll be curious to see how that comes out. We'll keep you posted on that. And then I also got word that Distilled has finally shipped one of the bourbon-based games. So it's
was one of the stretch goals pint of lanterns or something.
It's been so long since I've bid on this. I don't even tell you what the stretch goals are, but I can tell you that I got a link this week that shows me the ship and where it is. So it is on a Marina Costco kind of container ship, and it's just left the Sea of Japan.
Well,
so it's got to. So I don't know if they're going to come in through the West Coast and distribute that way, or if they're going to go through the Panama Canal. A lot of times, if they use quartermaster logistics, they'll go through the Panama Canal and come in through Savannah, and then they go down to Orlando and they get boxed and all this stuff. It's quite an operation. These guys that are doing third party logistics for these gamings are pretty incredible. In fact, said something about the nesting boxes. I got the 2 nesting boxes that I ordered this week, and I noticed that it came from a Miniature Market, is where they use Miniature Market for distribution, which I thought.
And you got 2 of the nesting boxes, you say?
Yes. Okay, so a bit of explanation.
Okay, yeah.
Wingspan is a game that we love so much that we have a spare of everything.
Okay.
In a closet over here, I have shrink-wrapped copies never opened of the original Wingspan European expansion Oceania, because we were playing it so much. We were like, you know what? We're going to ruin this game at some point. We better. And there was this fear, like, well, what if it goes out of print? Silly us. We have little faith.
Yeah,
but I have a duplicate of Isle of Cats and their variations, but my daughter gets the other sets. That's a little different. We're actually giving them to somebody, and then Parks is the same way. We always get duplicates of all the Parks and their expansions. So, but this is the only one that I actually hoard like a dragon.
Nice. All right.
And
does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of hoarding like a dragon.
Yes.
It's time to get
interesting things happening on the OG.
Well, so, I have a lot of articles that I'm going to put into the show notes, but I'm not going to go through each and every article, but let me kind of give you the net of it.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of talk in the Dungeons and Dragons tabletop role-playing game world that Hasbro, the owner of Wizards of the Coast, is revoking. This is what's rumored. I want to be very clear. This is rumored that they are going to revoke the open game license 1.0 that came out in the year 2000 that basically gave an unrevocable license, which I'm not sure how you revoke an unrevocable license, but there's an unbreakable curse in Harry Potter, so who knows? And so they're coming out with 1.1, which I don't know why it's 1.1 if you're revoking everything in 1.0. But the original license, open game license was approximately 900 words, and it sounds like they're going to 9,000 words.
Yeah.
So you can
expanded this out of them.
And
order of magnitude.
So when I originally started putting this in, it's like there's been this whole awfulizing, catastrophizing thing about what are they going to do? Because this OneD&D thing is coming out, and they're trying to, gamify D&D very similar to the way the new lady who's in charge, and I don't know her name, and I'm sorry I should, the lady who's now the president of Wizards of the Coast, who is part of Hasbro, she came from Microsoft Xbox division. And so they brought her in to kind of, and there's speculation that they brought her in because they learned to do microtransactions very well at Xbox. So imagine like, oh, you're playing OneD&D and you want to have this. Well, you can buy it and, you can buy this or you can buy that. And it's kind of like setting yourself up to win. I don't know if that's true. I haven't really looked at OneD&D. And as much as I like the virtual tabletop abilities that we have, I don't want to play D&D as if it's a video game.
Right. So
I'll be curious to see, where does OneD&D go? Because there's this idea of if you remove, in my opinion, if you remove theater of the mind, which I'm not saying it does, that kind of kills the creativity of the game. And I'll actually pause there for a second to say it was interesting. My youngest daughter last night was just sort of saying that, in her opinion, she's 23, because schools, in her opinion, don't really teach you how to write the way they used to, creative writing in the elementary ages.
Oh, yes.
That you're basically killing the ability for stories, for movies and things to be variable. That's a different topic for another time.
Yeah,
I'll just throw that out there and walk away from it. But it's and maybe I think you and her should have that conversation. But anyway, coming back to this original game license thing. So we don't really know what OneD&D is going to do to it.
No.
We don't really know what the final piece is, but here are some of the things that came out from a leaked version that was out on Gizmodo earlier this week. And the leaked version basically said, if you make any kind of money off of D&D third-party stuff, so think Paizo, think Kobold, think Kobold Press, think Christina Stiles, who we had on here a few weeks back, think Critical Role,
RPG, yes.
and then DM Dave and everybody that's on YouTube that has their system or has their livelihood orbiting around this game of D&D. Even Chaosium probably has, in the Cthulhu series, probably has a reference to the OGL. Probably
does. Yeah, that makes sense.
So they're basically saying if you make more than $50,000 a year on this, you need to be reporting what you've got. And then if you make more than $750,000 a year on this content, you got to start paying us a royalty of 20%. Of the revenue, not the profit, the revenue.
Mm.
So, and the way that
that's harsh.
And the way that this is written, let's say Joe and James get real creative. We come up with this idea for a Kickstarter, D&D through Kudzu League schools.
I like it.
And we raise $1 million. Well, everything over 750,000 of that, just that Kickstarter, that
gets scooped out immediately to them.
That 25% of that would 20% of that would go to them unless we were not using Kickstarter. Let's say we were using GameFound's new system, then we would owe them 25% because they want Kickstarter to be their preferred.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
Yeah. So there's that. And then let's say Joe and James are really bad managers and they pay all the way up to $1 million just to get that game fulfilled. They still owe the 25% between the 750 and the 1 million. So that's kind of sketchy.
I also saw that just if you're ever doing anything with them, you need to register.
Yes.
If you're whatever you do, even if it's just a PDF that you want to put up on drive-through or just on your own blog or whatever, you still need to send them a note that says, "Hey, I'm doing this."
And oh, by the way, the minute you publish it, they reserve the right to take it and use it and not have to pay you anything.
Yes. Yep. To vacuum it up, whatever they. Yep.
So this is kind of what we're seeing and what's been leaked. Nothing has been officially announced by Wizards of the Coast or Hasbro. There are a lot of YouTubers that are filling their channels with clickbait about this. They want you to watch, because they're like, "Oh, this is horrible." Or watch my video and see how horrible it is, And so I've really tried to avoid some of those. I have watched Dungeon Craft because he's a friend of Christina's. I have watched a few others to just sort of get the gist of it and read some articles, but I have not watched some of the other sensational ones that I know typically are just, they rant about everything, which is fine. They have a YouTube audience for that.
I like the theory that you were talking about before we started recording too.
Yeah. So what that was is I think Hasbro puts out the worst case scenario possible and see how people react. And then they dial it back to some more things that are still more favorable to them, but it makes it a lot more reasonable than people go, oh, this is so much better than we thought it was going to be. Because I think that one of the things that I think is the whole idea of revoking the OGL version 1, because there was some speculation that the OGL 1.1 would only apply to OneD&D, and that everything before that would still be governed by the original platform, which means 5e could still be a usable platform.
And I also think,
I think it will be, by the way.
That would be great. I was also thinking, you're right. There's a sort of psychological thing about this. If we leak it and then revise it, everybody says, oh, well, if that revised one was the first one, people would really lose their minds. But because it's less intense than the first one, then psychologically they're a little happier about it. Another, though, is that it allows wizards to kind of outsource and group source various, community responses and legal responses and theories, and just hear how people are going to think about and what they expect it to mean, so that they don't have to sit in a committee room with, a dozen people, almost all of them of whom are lawyers, say, well, let's talk about this and see what this means. Instead, you give it to 500,000 people and see what they react, and you scoop all of that information and say, okay, so that's not really what we meant, so let's revise that. People are just losing their minds about that one, so let's see if there's another way to do it. And so I'm wondering about that too.
That's fair. It's interesting, though, because this all started blowing up at the beginning of last week. And this morning, while I was prepping for this meeting or this podcast.
Is this a meeting? Is that what we call this?
Sure, why not? The Discord for the local game store finally started talking about the topic.
Interesting.
So it's kind of interesting to watch how it's threading through the groups. But at the end of the day, this is the way I look at it. I mean, I look at the way that we play D&D and what we're doing on our channel. We haven't monetized squat. We don't have any variations in the game, or just because we're collective storytelling.
Right.
And I don't think it'll change the way that we play, because I don't know if we'll gravitate to OneD&D. Honestly, right. I kind of like the being closer to the older school style of. I like physical dice. Yeah. I don't like electronic dice or online dice. So we'll see. I just don't want to see Wizards of the Coast. They say those who or what is it that Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain once said: "History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes." We've seen TSR. We've seen Wizards of the Coast do this before in multiple iterations, where they try to control something that really will hurt their brand in the long run.
And one interesting pattern that's interesting, even deeper than that, is we're going to release it so that a lot of people can have it. And then that starts to become very, very popular. And then they've tried to put the genie back in the bottle, try to close Pandora's box, whichever metaphor.
Sure.
So, yep.
But there people are like, oh, what does this mean for Critical Role? And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, they'll probably cut a very special, mutually beneficial deal between the two of them, and then it will continue to be their marketing influencing kind of arm. Because
I was going to say, you don't want to kill that golden goose.
Well, I mean, Matt Mercer's already has been an author inside of Wizards of the Coast even before he wrote his Wildmount and his other pieces that have come out. Because you go into the Tyranny of Dragons, I think there's some stuff in there that he wrote, as well as a few others. So it's fine. Yeah. My thing is, I want them to be fair. And fair is, we already have so many things in our lives where artists don't get paid for what they do.
This is true.
Organizations like Spotify have taken a lot of the money, and Apple, Apple with their, so many organizations have taken the money to the artist further and further away. Don't get me wrong. They still make money, but they don't get what they used to. And it's just because there's been something put in the way that does that. And I would hate to see that happen in a place like tabletop gaming, where yes, Hasbro has the right to protect what they're publishing, but I don't think that what they're publishing necessarily competes with what Dave Hamrick is doing, or what Matt Mercer is doing, or what any of us try to do. So I hope it works out. It's a game, I'd hate to see it, go such in a negative way, but we'll watch it. I didn't want us to be sensationalizing in here. This is more like what we know. I've got a number of articles that I will put in the show notes that everybody can look at their leisure, and we will go from there.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir. Yeah, no, I think because we're not anywhere near the end game, there's what can you even talk about with any degree of specificity? It's like, this is what that document says, and who knows if that's actually going to be the document we see in another week, another couple months, whatever. All
right. Well, I only had one more thing on the list.
Oh yes.
But I don't think we need to get deep in the weeds on it. But I just saw this really interesting article that said you might have too many games if.
Oh yeah, I recognize myself in several of those,
and I thought, wow, that's a pretty interesting.
When you said I want to have a goal of playing every game in my collection by the end of the year, I was like, dude, I would need at least 2 years to do that.
Well, yes, and I honestly don't think I'm gonna make that goal, but I do think that I'm gonna get the ones that are still in shrink wrap out and get them on the table.
See, that's awesome. Yeah.
And I think that, but I did like this very first one. I'm guilty of this more than once. You spend a day or two researching a game only to find out you already own it. I'm not there yet.
I'd like
but I did accidentally buy 2 copies of Flamecraft.
I do like I'm looking, there's a game that I have in mind. I know it's somewhere on these shelves, and I just keep wandering around the room trying to find where the hell it is. Yeah.
So are you Library of Congress or Dewey Decimal with your games?
No, I do it by, it's color. It's
I will say this, and then we can kind of draw it to a close. Yeah, I hear your next appointment out there in the background.
Oh yeah. He's alive and kicking.
As I get these big box collections, like I have Everdell, and I now have the Wingspan, and those. Right. I have a Kallax over here that's a 2x4, so it's 8, and I think I'm going to fill that up with the big boxes.
There you go.
And any spare space, I'm just going to fill up with big boxes and Stonemeyer. And then last thing is I got a Dice Destroyer insert that basically helps you build a big box for the root collection.
Amazing.
Because I have all of the roots, so I need to trying to be more efficient with my Kallax space, and so I figured if I could get that all into one shelf, that would be huge. Anyway.
Life goals, man. Life goals.
All right, so lots to talk about this go around. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks. So as usual, this is Joe Mahaffey, and I am not bored. I am bored gaming.
And I'm James Engelhardt, hoping that all your tiebreakers break your way.
We will see you all next time, and maybe I'll get the tagline right.
See ya.
Talk to you soon.
It's gonna be great. It's the latest craze of 1988. Got a couple of pencils and a drawing pad. It's gonna be gnarly. It's gonna be rad. It's Pictionary. Put your piece on the board. Pictionary. Now what was that word? Pictionary. All this sketch is absurd. Pictionary. I'm drawing a word. Forget about the table, let's play on the floor. We'll make us some popcorn, yeah, we'll lock the back door. Now pick up your card and draw what you see. It looks like a bush. Now wait, it looks like a tree. It must be Pictionary. Put your piece on the board. Pictionary. Now what was my word? Pictionary. Are the sketches absurd? Pictionary. I'm drawing a word. Let's go! Drawing all things from picket fences to hats. And just a minute ago I drew a thermostat. I feel pretty good, I've got the hang of it now. I can draw hurricanes or I can draw you Moscow.